Do you ever wonder why it can be so difficult to surrender and fully receive from your partner or from your friends without feeling that you need to jump to pay them back or minimize the thing they've done and say, no, I don't really need you to do that. Don't worry about it. I've got it. Why is it so difficult for us to fully surrender? Do you ever wonder why it feels so difficult being a woman? Why so often it feels like we are trying to race against time, to show no signs of aging, to be pleasing to everyone, to be in constant service, and to play to the almighty male gaze. If you are tired of living under this construct and know that deep down there's this sense and this longing that there was more to this life, I assure you, there is. And that is why I have created my 2-day event, Magnetic, which will be happening November 2nd and 3rd in Phoenix, Arizona, where I will guide you through a 4-step process for living the most magnetic, expansive, exquisite life as a woman. These are the rules written by women, not by patriarchal standards that have kept us silenced, have kept us controlled, and have kept us in endless small boxes. Come and learn the art of the feminine, intuitive way. Welcome to your emotional makeover. Things your mother never told you because no one ever told her. I'm your host, Dr. Amanda Hansen. This is where you reimagine womanhood. Let us begin. I think it's so important that we talk about the art of receiving. So we all know there's so much talk right now going on, which I think is wonderful. And it's opened up a whole new world of conversation and understanding of dynamics. But there's a whole world of conversation happening in regards to the masculine and feminine. Now, I think it's also important to state that we individually, every human being, has components and is divided into parts, not necessarily functioning in equal parts of masculine and feminine, but we all have those masculine and feminine energetics within us. Some we feel more comfortable operating under. I think more often than not, we find a lot of people running heavily in their masculine because culturally, at least in America, it is what has been deemed the best way, right? Especially with a patriarchal structure where we are watching one form for success. So it's go, 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 drive, 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 results, 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 bottom line, bottom line, bottom line. And we have internalized that as a way to feel worthy, as a way to feel like productive human beings. And we have in many ways vilified any form of resting or relaxing. I even know people who struggle with any kind of rest or relaxation because they had conditioning around it growing up. If they were resting, that their parents or aunts or uncles, someone would make a remark to them that they were lazy. And so their ability to actually receive rest or downtime feels counterintuitive to their body. It makes them feel more stressed. So some people push, push, push and never relax. I was definitely one of those people for a very long time, and not because I necessarily had anyone telling me growing up that resting was wrong or bad. It was just something I'd internalized watching the world, that somehow if I took time off, if I rested, I may fall behind. Someone else may surpass me, or I may not be as good. Thankfully, I have disengaged and disentangled from that quite a bit. But I would say there's a lot that is still a work in progress because I personally do thrive on producing and working and serving my community. So for me, I have to be very conscious about making sure that I have that time to rest and replenish and nourish myself. Now, I do infuse my daily life with so much pleasure that I feel like I am receiving such doses of pleasure that sustains me, fulfills me, and actually overflows me. But I definitely still need to practice more with complete and total unplugging and normalizing it inside of my nervous system, knowing that there will still be a business the next day, that it is safe to take 24 hours just for myself. So again, finding that balance is so important. But what I want to talk about today as it relates to this masculine and feminine energy in particular is as you know, if you've been following my story at all, in I believe 9 days from now, I will take the stage in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, at the Phoenix Convention Center for my live event, Magnetic, which will be 2 full days where it will be me solely on that stage every day in leadership, in performing, in teaching, and answering questions and guiding. It's a very deep spiritual activation that we will all be a part of. And so if you listened to last week's episode, heard that I had a double whammy. I had a really intense cold and I had a tsunami style period. So I was battling two things at one time internally inside of my body, and it was keeping me from sleeping. As someone who really likes to prioritize my sleep and that restful period, I found that I was averaging about 4 hours a night for almost 6 nights, which is unheard of for me. I'm usually a 7 or 8 hours a night kind of person. And so this is where the art of the masculine and feminine comes in, and as it relates in particular to receiving. So let's put my story on pause for just a moment. I'm going to circle back fully. But what I want to say here is we often talk about, and I'm just going to speak on behalf of women right now. And I've done this. I hear so many women do this, whether it's friends, clients, family members, complain about something that their partner's not doing or not giving to them, as if maybe the partner's supposed to be a mind reader, as if the partner's supposed to know exactly what it is that the woman needs and how she needs it. And I've heard women say, I don't understand how he doesn't know. We've been together so long. How can he not read that I need this thing right now? And so the conversation often then leads back to, or I will help guide her back to, where is the disconnect between this need that you have? What happens between you recognize there's a need and you jump to feeling frustrated that he's not fulfilling it? Help me understand what happens. Where's the disconnect that happens that says, I have this need and I'm going to ask him to fulfill it? Right? So that's the first hurdle that many people need to get over, is being able to ask for what it is that we need. So we play this game where we want people to be mind readers. And then when they don't read our minds, or they don't read our minds exactly how we wanted them to, then we're pissed off, then we're resentful, then we retract. And I actually think it's a dynamic that unconsciously we set ourselves up for, because it keeps us safe from really having to be vulnerable. I also believe that we've told this story that if we somehow ask for something that we need, we are weak. We are meek, that we are in an inability to meet our own needs. And that is often not the case at all. We often can meet our own needs, but it feels so beautiful when someone is able to. Now, one step further is if you ever arrive at the place and you've done that internal work and you recognize it's actually a queen's behavior. A princess is the woman who is pouty and pissed off and resentful. And I spent many years doing that, expecting her partner to read her mind and guess what it is she needs. And then when he doesn't guess it, she's doubly upset now. And that perpetuates and goes on and on and on and on. And it's just a dynamic that you almost can't get out of. It's a way of interacting that you know of, and becomes that uncomfortable misery. I spent many years doing that. And then when I decided, gosh, being a princess is so painfully exhausting, and I'm a decade in, and I don't feel like he even really knows me, because I haven't shown what it is that I need because I had still equated needing something as weakness. And I really had to do the work around that to understand, no, actually, it's the strength in me, the queen energy in me that is able to go and say, I really need this thing from you. And to then, here's the biggest piece that I want to talk about today. So when I work with women and we work through the ability to kind of break down that fragmented, or I think disserving storyline that needing something from someone else means you're somehow a weak person. When we're able to work through that and arrive at like, okay, this place of I'm ready to say what it is that I need. I'm ready to go to this person and say what I so desire from them. Here's the next place I see people get tripped up. This is something I've experienced before. And so I'm speaking from experience, not just with clients, but with myself as well. So we state the need, the thing it is that we so want. Then one of, believe it or not, the hardest things to do is to then receive, to surrender and receive fully what that person is then giving us. So let me break this down even further. Surrender and receiving, if you've been in your controlling energy, if you've been in your masculine energy, can feel like a free fall. It can feel terrifying. It can feel, you might even get in your head thinking, oh my gosh, now what do I owe this person? I've heard many women say it's just easier to do the things I need myself rather than ask him, because he won't do it the way I want him to do it. I'll be disappointed, and or he'll expect something back from me. So there's this litany of reasons often that women don't even want to verbalize what it is they need because they feel like it then becomes contractual. Now, of course, we love reciprocity in relationships. We want relationships that ebb and flow. And when we're doing it from this place of masculine and feminine flow together, I think the natural state that comes up within us is our desire to then flow and give back, but not from a scorekeeping place, not from a place that says, well, you did this thing on Monday, and so now I owe you, or I'm going to make sure I do this thing for you by the end of the week so that you don't think that I'm not appreciative. Not from that energy, from this natural state that we're always in trust, that we're going to be meeting each other's needs and no one is needing to keep score, not have that tight grip. So what allows someone to surrender and receive is that kind of energy. It can feel really, really scary to release control, to suspend any idea of how it has to go exactly, to receive without judgment or critique. True surrender for the way that the person wants to give. I have so many examples of this, but I wanted, in my personal life especially, but I really wanted to highlight one that just happened a couple of days ago because it's so palpable for me still. So as we circle back to the story of me being super sleep deprived over those 6 evenings and knowing that I have this live event coming up where it is going to require an incredible energetic, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, to show up for several hundred women for 2 full days in that room. And I want to bring all of me. They deserve all of me. So I was beside myself on last Sunday evening thinking, how am I going to solve for this? And it was almost then getting so in my head, the lack of sleep, that I couldn't get myself to a place of really deep relaxation, even trying many of the things I typically try. And I, more often than not, have no problems falling asleep. It's almost a joke how quickly I fall asleep. So this was really out of character and range for me. So Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, rather, I'm pretty upset about this and verbally expressing to my husband, I've really got to find a solution. I've got to figure something out here. Now, I had not directly said what I had envisioned, but I said, I've got to figure something out. I don't know how you can help me with this, but I really need to come up with a solution so that I can get really restful, nourishing nights of sleep up until my event. And so he said, well, I've got some ideas. And then he went, as he loves to do, into his note section of his phone, and he basically wrote it all out. And he wrote, and then he sent it to me, and he crafted at the beginning this beautiful, like this love letter saying, it's killing me to see you so tired. It's painful to watch you be worried about not getting your sleep caught up before your event. What you're about to do, the service you are about to provide these women, requires you to be in your most ultimate state of functioning. And I want to do everything in my power to help you get there. So here's what I think could be helpful. Every night, let's make sure that you are physically in the bed, ready for bed by 9 p.m. And then I think you should put on your warming eye mask, your warming blanket. We'll light your favorite candles and incense. We'll play your most favorite spa music. The lights will go out. Everyone else who's in our home will be alerted that it's a no-fly zone, that they can't come in. No one can knock on the door. No one can approach the bedroom. They know after 9 p.m. that you are not accessible. And what I would like to do is, after we get you all set up in the bed with all of these things, I want to massage your feet for 45 minutes to an hour until you fall asleep. And so we are on, I think we've done 4 nights of this. Every single night, I have drifted to sleep. Every single night, the expectation was that I wouldn't feel like I needed to then lift the eye mask or start conversation during, at the end, that I thanked him so profusely before, but that if I drifted to sleep, I didn't want to feel the pressure to have to interrupt that slumber if I heard him walking out of the room to thank him. We also then decided, he'd offered and suggested that he sleep in the guest room so that my sleep was completely uninterrupted. I feel reborn. I feel brand new. I feel I've had 10 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. I feel so loved. I feel so seen. I feel so deeply held and honored. I feel cared for in a way that is so regal and elevated. And it is something so profoundly beautiful, because I will tell you, when I first read the message of everything he was detailing, my instinct or natural reaction was to say, oh, that's too much. You don't need to do all that. Maybe like a 10-minute foot massage will be fine. And then I kept feeling that contraction, and I kept asking myself, okay, what's happening, Amanda? What about this feels uncomfortable? And it felt like excess. It felt like too many nights, too much for him after his very long days of work. I know the schedule he keeps. I know how much he has on his plate. I know how much he is responsible for, and how much he would love to just sit and relax at the end of a long work day, especially as it's getting closer to bedtime. And so I kept paying attention to that reaction that was coming up in me. And I kept like allowing myself to just feel it, but not give into it. And I remember having this actual flip of a moment that said, what if you say yes? What if you fully and completely surrender? And I've surrendered so many ways in so many aspects of our marriage, but this particular extent, this many days for this kind of treatment felt so lavish. And so I said yes. And I decided then and there that anything that came up for me, any feeling of needing to reciprocate, or any feeling of, okay, those are enough nights. You did it for enough. You don't need to keep doing it. Anything that was going to get in the way of this experience that had been laid out, I was going to continue to go back in and look at what was getting stirred up in me. And the most beautiful thing is in my ability to have that level of surrender. I've been able to meet myself in this incredibly soft space, in this most tender part of my humanity that says, wow, I don't even know if I've realized how little I've allowed myself to receive, how much I've given and served in all aspects of my life without hardly ever admitting or owning or allowing myself to feel the need to receive. I don't know if it's the part of me that grew up with Catholic guilt, if it's the part of me that has the mother guilt or shame that feels like it's never enough. That no matter how much I give and serve and do, that somehow I could still do more. I am the quintessential woman who for so long spent time thinking about, let's say, a child's birthday, where I did every single possible thing to make them feel so seen, so loved, so honored, so celebrated. And at the end of the night, I would somehow focus on the one thing maybe I forgot. Maybe it was some minor thing at their party that I forgot to have at the party. Or I said or did something that maybe wasn't as indulgent as it could have been expressed. And I forever would look at that one thing like, oh gosh, but only if you could have done that, Amanda. It would have been even better. They would have known for sure that they were loved. This is something I am forever working on. And so to lean back and surrender and receive is such a huge step for me, particularly for that many evenings, for that level of treatment. And now I'm full in. I'm going to go all the way up until I fly out next Wednesday, receiving this level of treatment from my husband, because being surrendered and feeling safe, he allows for that safety because he's not somebody who's like, oh, I can't wait to see how you're going to pay me back on this one. Or, gosh, I wish you would have offered something like this to me when I was going through really stressful times in my job. Because he doesn't show up with that energy, he gives me so much space to truly surrender, to truly feel safe. So I want to acknowledge that as well, because it is uh, it's a dance between both partners, right? It's not just me surrendering and receiving. I feel safe to surrender and receive because he's created the context and the environment for that to happen for me. So he's so in his masculine. He's so in this like service and caretaking. He sets the room up completely. All he wants me to do, he plugs the warming blanket and the eye mask in and lights everything and gets the music going and the temperature just perfect. And he has my most favorite cozy pair of socks on the bedside table that he puts on after I fall asleep. He uses my favorite body oil and creams. So all I have to do after I brush my teeth is get into the bed. So he's so in his masculine. He's created the container, and I just get to be the free-flowing form that lays back and completely releases. And I'm so excited to look at more ways in our relationship where I can allow that level of surrender in, because it has been such a supreme journey, and one that it just goes to show we are never too late to step into new versions of partnership or ways of interacting and being. And this has taken a lot of work for me to get to this point. Because as a young girl with my father leaving, the story that it's not safe to surrender, it's not safe to be vulnerable with men, it's not safe to actually let them caretake because they'll disappoint, they'll abandon. This has been a journey. And it's been many, many things to get me to this point that have been so beautiful and extraordinary. But I wanted to share this one in particular because it's so real time. I'm living it right now. And sometimes I think those are the most helpful shares that we can give to our communities, is something we are walking out in real time and sharing what's coming up for us. So that initial fear and contraction, I feel, is almost completely gone because I've worked my way through it. I've normalized feeling safe in this situation. I've normalized that this is what beautiful, reciprocal, respectful relationship gets to look like. There have been many times where I've had to care for him, and I'm sure there will be many more. And now I get to be in such a surrender to be the one who gets cared for. So I share all of this to say, I know there are so many women out there who want so much to surrender to their partner, who want so much to be able to say, I really need this thing. And I would love for it to come from you. Of course I can do it for myself, but it would just be so beautiful to feel the receiving of that from you. And now here's where the key is. Then you have to really get into the practice of receiving, and not receiving with critique or any feedback or criticism, but truly just receiving and being able to then allow your nervous system do the work around what comes up for you, where you feel contracted, where you want to feel critical, where you want to feel like, oh, that's not the way, right? Because that's how we shut people down, by critiquing and criticizing. It doesn't mean we don't give some feedback so beautifully and gently later, but I often believe like the best feedback comes through showing people, showing them through something you would do for them, how you like something to be given to you. So for every couple, this will be, and this is with friendships as well. This is in business relationships. There's so many ways for that giving and receiving. But I really, really want to just bring this to our conversation, because we talk a lot about, I wish my partner would only XYZ. And then when they XYZ, we either critique it so that we can't fully receive it, or as soon as they start to come in our direction to give it to us, we shut down because it feels so uncomfortable and unnatural. So pay attention to all the sneaky ways that want to creep in from you building that true connection through that beautiful art of surrendering, that beautiful art of receiving, because it really is a practice. For women who've overgiven, overserved for so long, it's really, for many of us, very unnatural to surrender and receive. I hope that you find your way on this journey. Please message me. Let me know how it's going for you. And if you are enjoying this podcast, anytime a 5-star rating and review is so helpful, so that it pushes this for more women around the world to have access to these messages. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I would love to hear your feedback. Message me on Instagram or write a review. And of course, if you know a woman who could benefit from this episode, please share it with her, because it can heal her life. And that's what sisters do. Love always, Dr. Amanda.